Here we go. Jean, where did you grow up?
I grew up here and there, John. I was born in Chicago. Lived in, when I was 2 years old, we moved to Albany because of my dad's job. Then he was
Albany what?
Albany, New York.
New York, okay.
Yeah. Then after, I think it was 18 months there, so I was told, he was assigned back to Chicago to a better position. He worked for Montgomery Ward as an electrical buyer. There's an interesting anecdote. You want an anecdote?
Okay.
My dad was a farm boy from North Dakota, went to St. John's College, high school and college, up in Collegeville, Minnesota, shook the dust of the farm off his feet and came down to St. Paul to make his way in the world. He just had two years of college. That's all he could pay for. And while he was there, they had St. John's had one of the earliest radio stations in the state, maybe in the country. And he was fascinated by this, and hung around there. And pretty soon he had the key to it to go. He could go and do whatever he wanted, could and would, with whoever the person was that was running it. And he, as a hobby, he knew all about radio. So he came down to St. Paul, make his fortune, and said, "Well, this is fine. Radio's the big future thing. People will have to buy them, then they'll break. You have to get repaired." So he'd opened a repair shop with a friend of his, little knowing that of the money it would take to get the thing going. Didn't work at all. Okay. When next seen, he had some kind of a janitorial job with a shoe company, Freeman's Shoe Company in St. Paul, pushing a broom or nothing, wrapping packages or something. But there were a number of young ladies who worked there, one of whom was Margaret Finley. And she was a secretarial type job, and that she did that well, and he got to know everybody. And then he noticed that just exactly at the end of the month, every single month, she'd have a stack of papers on her desk, and she'd have her pencil going, and she would look so perplexed and so sad, and this is so awful. So of course he said, "What's the matter?" She said, "I have to make these financial reports, and it doesn't come out. I don't know what to do." He said, let me look at it. Maybe I could do it. Well, no time flat, they were all straightened out. They got to be friends. Then they got to be more than friends. Then they were engaged. But he could not support a wife, much less a family that might come along. So he got a different job, still pushing the broom at Sears. There. And in the back room one day, he was looking at the new shipments had come in of the new products for the next year, the radio, electrical stuff. He was standing there looking at it, and this guy he didn't know came next to him, had a suit on, and he said, what do you think of this?" And Dad said, "It's the usual junk." Not known for his tact. And the guy said, "Well, what do you mean? What's the matter with it?" And Dad said, "This and this and this could be for the less cost, something else that would be much better and more durable, etc., etc." So guess what? Horatio Alger, the fella standing there watching, was the big buyer from Chicago. And the next thing Dad knew, he was asked, would he come to Chicago and be a buyer, with, of course, an enormous raise. And then they could get married, and did. And that's how come I was born in Chicago. I'm the eldest of the family.
Oh, funny.
Well, let's see, you asked me, then where did we live? Then we lived in different suburbs around there. Then I lived for a while in Canton, Ohio. Dad was changed jobs. So then back to Evanston, because that job he wasn't as he had been told it would be. Back to Evanston, and then after a couple of years there, I went up to Minneapolis, where he got this last job of his life. That was during the war years. At Onan Generator, was one of the big generator companies then. And when he was taken on, they brought him to a room and they said, "This is your office. These things on all the bookshelves are the government specifications for the right kind of bookkeeping, and I don't know, anything connected with these generators." He said, "Nobody has had time to read them. You're in charge of straightening out this mess." Think of, they were shipping generators to the Pacific, of course. Think about it. The first ones they sent when they got there were rusted totally together. And they had to devise how they could be shipped that it could not happen, and so on, so on. So those were interesting times. Then when the war ended, he stayed there. I don't know. It was something wonderful.
So he wasn't in World War II then, right?
This was World War II, yeah.
Well, he wasn't in the war though, was he?
No, he was in his 40s by then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was your family like?
Well, we were 3 girls, so that was kind of fun.
Okay.
And what was it like? I don't know. Mom was Irish, of Irish descent, and literary and artistic. I love that kind of thing. A big talker. And Dad was more quiet. Name is German, but he himself was what was he? Half German and half Bohemian.
Oh.
From up around New Ulm, Minnesota originally. And he was, they used to play bridge a lot. They always said she was a much better player. He was a much better bidder. So I'd tell you what they were like, I think.
Oh, funny.
And we 3 girls were just 2 and 3 years apart, and different. The next sister down is Peggy, and she was shy. She's now come out in flaming colors, written a book, and is a public speaker. And our third sister was Jerry, who became a high school teacher and was fascinating on the subject of, young people, but who died rather young from a dissecting aorta, if you know what that is.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, died over a weekend. Boom. It was awful. And Peggy married, continued to live up in Minneapolis, in a suburb. And when she called me up and told me that they had bought a house, I said, well, where is it? And she said, when I tell you the name, don't laugh. It was Sherwood Forest.
Oh, funny.
Oh, yes.
What schools did you go to?
Many schools.
Okay.
I went to public school for kindergarten in Evanston, and then St. Athanasius School in Evanston, just run by the Sisters of Providence. It was an excellent school, just excellent. First of all, it was nice. Was just understood among the parents and everybody. If somebody was having a birthday party, every girl in the room was invited, not just some girls. I mean, we thought that's what you did, and I still think that's what you ought to do. And their English language instruction was just very fine. I knew elements of grammar in 8th grade that our college kids now never heard of. And anyway, then when we moved to Ohio, I went to still another high school, another grade school, finished there at another high school, back to Evanston to another high school, then to Minneapolis to a third high school, where I stayed for the last 2 years. And then I went to Rosary College.
Okay. In
River Forest.
River Forest.
Yeah.
What were your intellectual interests when you were a youngster? And this could be like as a college-age person or perhaps younger. And whose thought influenced you?
Yeah. I don't know what you mean by young.
A youngster. It could be interpreted any. Like when you started having serious thoughts about literature or philosophy or whatever, or history. What books interested you? Like when you're in college, late high school, college.
Late high school. All right. I wasn't sure what. I don't know that there was any book that influenced me terribly. I loved to read, and I read all kinds of things and enjoyed them. But I couldn't say any one that I particularly liked.
Okay.
That was a big influence on me.
Were you a history major when you were in college?
Well, I wasn't anything at first. That's another story. I wasn't anything at first because I was only a freshman.
Okay.
And but I got sky-high marks in mathematics. I think because I'd taken 3 years in high school, 4 years in high school, at my father's request. I had an excellent background, so I got these sky high marks. So there were those who thought, well, I should certainly be a math major. Well, I didn't think about that because I was thinking I was going to join the convent, and then we'd see what happened next, and that's what happened.
Okay. Well, what did you major in college?
In the end, I majored in French.
French, really?
French, of all things. Well, yes, because When I joined the convent, had finished my freshman year. And the first year in the convent, you take some more courses, so I took some more courses, one of which was French. And, I had taken German in college, but I have since learned that the Cincinnati Dominicans are partial to the French. I don't know why. Anyway, so I continued, took courses in the summertime and so on, piled up some more credits. And then when, about my fourth year, maybe fifth year, teaching school in the meantime, teaching grade school, I was sent to a school we had in Fribourg, Switzerland, a junior year abroad program, but partly to swell the crowd because there were just three other sisters there. I was the fourth, and partly to keep on taking courses, to finish up my degree. Well, it was a place where French majors went to complete their majors. So I did French in the division just because that's what they were giving us. So I finished and got a degree in French, and I took German that year too, because the idea was that I would probably stay there and get a doctorate in math. Well, that didn't turn out. I just knew that was not a good thing for me. And I said that to the Mother General when she came around one time, and she said, well dear, she was lovely. She said, dear, if you don't think this isn't right, well, you shouldn't do it. I said, oh, and burst out into tears. And she hugged me, and okay. So away I went, back to my grade school days, to New York, Corpus Christi, wonderful so-called progressive school in the context of the Eastern conservatives.
Now this is in New York City, right?
New York City, Manhattan,
Okay.
121st and Broadway.
Oh, so was it Washington Heights?
No, not that far north.
Okay.
Across the street from Columbia.
Okay. Okay.
Across the street from Union Theological, around the corner from Jewish Theological, and not far from Juilliard as it was then. Our pastor had been the Catholic chaplain at Columbia for many years. Therefore, we had library privileges in all of those places. But instead of having to pay, some whopping great sum. Loved it. 7 years. Thought it was marvelous. And after that, I was assigned to Edgewood.
Oh.
And that's how I got to Edgewood.
Okay. I was going to say
French major. Then while I was there, I got a master's in history.
I was going to say, what led you to studying history? And you got your PhD from the University of Wisconsin, right?
Correct.
So what led you to history?
How did I get into history?
Yeah.
When I was in New York, I got a master's in history from Fordham.
Okay.
Going over summers and riding over on the subway and then on the bus to get to class after school.
Ah, okay.
So that was nice.
Okay, now let's backtrack a little bit. What led you to the Dominican Order? Why did you become a Dominican?
I'll tell you, I became a Dominican for this reason. By the time I decided I thought I would like to enter a convent, I had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, gone to school to 4 different orders of sisters, none of whom were Dominican. But that was after high school. My parents said, you're absolutely crazy. You can't, you're too young, you don't know what you're doing. Okay, I said, so go to college a year, and we'll see what happens. So I went to Rosary, which had a top-notch reputation, and encountered the Dominican sisters. This was still another order that I got to know. I like them much better than any of the rest of them. They seem to be more free and they have more fun and to be a little sharp about things, to like each other and have a good time,
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, that's for me.
Oh, and how old were you?
Well, it would have been 18. I guess.
18, okay.
I suppose. 18 that year.
And
So I was 19 when I joined.
And this happened at Rosary College, right?
Right. Correct.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, the next question is, before you came to Edgewood, what were you doing? And were you teaching in New York then?
Yes, I had taught in Milwaukee my first couple of years, then in River Forest, because was near Rosary, I could commute to Rosary and take some classes at night or, between times. And then in New York at Corpus Christi.
Okay.
Where there were a lot of really wonderful teachers. I learned so much about teaching and kids and everything. Of course, that's a fascinating school because think about 121st Street.
Right.
We had kids from the projects up in Harlem. We had some kids from Columbia related to students or faculty or staff or somebody.
Oh.
We had just a regular old New York inhabitants who lived with the East and West Wing,
Okay.
and
So it was pretty
Oh,
diverse,
where?
as we say these days, right?
pardon?
It was fairly diverse, as we say
extremely
today.
diverse, yeah.
Oh, and what years were these again?
Oh, well, let's see, it was probably from 53, I think, to 61.
Okay. What was Edgewood like when you got here? Like, what was any buildings that are no longer here or anything, or what did it look like?
Oh, it was so different. Well, DeRicci had just been built, and Regina had been built shortly before that. The high school building was built in 1927, so that was well stable. The old convent, I enjoyed a whole lot living there because it had, over the years, as different things, it was used in different things for different ways. Internal changes were made. So plyboard went up, and here's 4 rooms where there used to be, a great big classroom, and so on and so forth. And the way that the sisters lived, everybody who wasn't obliged, let's say, to work in the dorms or something, everybody lived in that old convent. College teachers, high school teachers, grade school teachers. And I mean, it's just a fascinating mix of people.
Huh.
With all different kinds of interests and information. And there was never one trace of, well, I teach college and you teach grade school.
Really?
Never. Never ever felt that in my whole life. Here.
And did you all take meals together
Yes,
communally?
yeah, sure.
Oh, I imagine that was wonderful.
The old refectory. The old refectory was in the basement of that big building.
Huh.
And, yeah.
When was that building taken down?
I think it was 69, 67. I was in Paris at the time, living in Paris.
Okay.
But I lived there, and I had a couple of different rooms there. And then 1 year, or maybe 2, I also lived in the house that was across the street from Edgewood, which we had owned since time immemorial. One time it was the chaplain's house. Another time it was the student housing. And when I lived there, it was sisters lived there.
Okay.
And
Oh, you mentioned.
we still ate together.
Okay. To backtrack a bit, you mentioned living in Paris. What years were you living in Paris?
Well, I was living in Paris after I taught for 2 years, 3 years in the campus school. I was assigned to get a PhD at Wisconsin.
Uh-huh.
So I started off in that, and in French history.
Okay.
Which I was interested in Europe. I was far more interested in European history than American.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I had serviceable French, by the accident almost. So that. But then I had to move out of Edgewood because I always was terribly strapped for rooms. So I moved to St. Brayfield's Convent down on the square.
Uh-huh.
Commuted a couple of years, so that would have been 60. Let's see, 60. Must have been 67. I went to Paris. I was there
Okay.
for 2 years.
Oh, were you there during May '68?
Oh, I certainly was. I was there for the Les Événements.
How wild was that?
Oh, very, very, very different, I can tell you. Every form of transport stopped running.
Okay.
And after a while, they put in army trucks, open trucks, and they would go down the main bus routes. And when people would line up to get in, and then if they couldn't jump up onto the truck very well, there were always soldiers there who would take them by either elbow and put them up, take them down again when they got wherever they wanted to go.
Oh, really?
And of course, I was doing 2 things, and one was research at the Bibliothèque Nationale. That closed, and there was a committee of readers made themselves into the executives of what was going to happen there, and the head of which was Simone de Beauvoir.
Oh, really? Did you meet her?
No.
Okay.
And I was also taking courses at the Institut Catholique for my PhD minor.
Okay.
This wonderful University of Wisconsin. I said, well, what will be your minor? To my advisor, Henry Hill. And I said, well, I'd really like to do something in historical theology. And he said, oh, yeah, well, we don't have that one. I said, I know. He said, so well, why don't you do that at one of the European universities when you have to be over there anyway? He said, and just send me your plan, and I'll approve it, and then the office will approve it. He said, all right. It was wonderful. I mean, it was intelligent.
Oh.
It was intelligent. And so that's what happened.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now you also lived in Florence once, right?
That came later,
What years were you living in Florence?
75 to 80.
Okay. Oh, good heavens. So what was that like? Were you teaching or?
I was running a graduate, Rosary College's graduate school of fine arts,
Okay.
which was music and arts, fine arts.
Was it American kids or was it Italian kids?
No, it was English speaking kids,
Okay.
mostly. So, Americans, some from Australia, New Zealand. I can't think. I guess it's those places while I was there.
Okay.
But the faculty was about half Italian and half American. Some of the Italians were English speaking, but many of the courses were conducted in Italian. So the students had to have had Italian before they got over there. And we had an intensive Italian course for them before school started. They had to come early in,
Okay.
so that they could manage. But instructors were, they were American. There were few Americans that permanently lived over there. Italians, Austrian, Schwarzenberg from Austria. Oh, I mean, it's wonderful. You're probably familiar with the Schwarzenberg Palace in Vienna.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Well, lovely, simple man. Taught history of art. And I'm trying to think if there were any other nationalities. I guess not.
Huh. Okay. Okay. Do you have any good Edgewood stories from when you got to Edgewood?
I'll tell you a funny story about Sister Me Stephen,
Okay.
whom I got to know, of course. She was there when I first came in. DeRicci had just been built. Everybody had a single office, brand new, shiny, wonderful. But she was a great scholar. Very, very, knew all kinds of things.
What was her specialty? What was her academic specialty?
Her academic specialty to start with was math.
Oh, really?
Yes. But her interest was theology and scripture.
Okay.
And I think by the time she was done, I think she had like 3 masters or something. But while she was at Edgewood teaching religious studies, and she began to teach that, she had a master's in that and got a master's in that someplace. She didn't have enough to do, so she thought, well, she'd like to read the scriptures, the Old Testament and the original. So she started taking Hebrew by correspondence, and did very well at that. She was very, very good at languages, and eventually, pretty soon, she was going to the graduate seminar with Menahem Mansour, his professor. And writing papers, terrific papers. And the next thing we know, she was bringing the sticky buns every week, and she got a master's in Hebrew studies.
Really?
Yes.
From the UW?
University, UW.
Oh, wow.
When she died, we had the memorial. He came with them, and other people. What's the right word? The chauffeur, they did it was a Catholic memorial service.
Right.
They did also some of the Jewish things.
Really?
It was just lovely. She used to hang out at the temple up on,
Oh, really?
yes, and she's going to, she had her Hebrew prayer book, and she'd go up there and pray with them, and the rabbi then, was it Rabbi Brahms, was it? I forget if that was his name, or he's the current fellow. Finally gave her own key. He said he'd be in his office and he'd hear her voice out in the hall, and she'd be showing people through the temple, explaining everything to them.
Really?
Really. And there's a nice story about her, that she was going up for something in the high holy days, and she met a man she knew well, and he was bringing his young daughter along to this. And when they got seated, they sat together. The girl leaned over to her father and he said, "Who is she?" He said, "You kissed her." He said, "Well, you explained who she was," and then she said, "Well, she knows these prayers better than I do."
Oh, how funny.
That's a good story. That suffice for the Stevie story.
Okay. What are you doing currently?
Currently, I am, what am I doing currently? Working on a few odd writing projects of no great account,
Okay.
and trying to stay healthy,
Right.
because I'm very happy.
Okay. All right, we're kind of winding down here. What is your vision of the for the Edgewood College of the future?
You know, I would love to see Edgewood College of the future replicate some of the qualities that Edgewood had when I first came here.
Such
Because,
as?
of course, it's gotten large.
Right.
It was small. All right, giving allowances for that though. It was the way things were conducted were more personal. People knew it was possible to know more people, to know everybody. I know that's pie in the sky now,
Right.
but many a decision was made not necessarily on the basis of, well, the regulation is blah blah blah, but you, the student, you need something and we've got it, so it's yours. Or I remember Al Ross telling me once that he used to get, maybe sometimes people look a little askance at him, because when students couldn't pay, they'd be sent to see him, and he would talk with them, and he would give them credit, let them go, pay me later.
Really?
Yes. And he said, he said, never once did one of those students fail to repay what he had lent them.
Really?
What the college had lent them, yeah.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
never once. And I think probably now that isn't possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Of the 5 core values of Edgewood, which one speaks to you the most?
I have to tell you something, John. Those 5 values were manufactured as Dominican values at a general meeting maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Really?
Yes. I'll tell you what are the real Dominican values. Now they are calling the pillars of the Dominican Order. These are the authentic ones.
Okay.
If you look on the website of the Order, you will find the 4 pillars. You won't find the Edgewood values,
Okay.
which are lovely values, but they're not distinctive, are they? The Order's values are study, serious thinking about things, community, know people, and love people, be good to people, get along fine when you fight. Anyway, about things. Some kind of preaching, we say, but it's the outreach
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things, which Edgewood does have now. And the 4th one is prayer. Those are the four values, and I think they're just wonderful. I'd like to see them exemplified, obviously, in an educational setting like Edgewood. They all apply.
Mm-hmm.
Study, serious study. Courses that are interesting and that demand there's a lot of reflection and action on the part of the students. I don't like courses where everybody gets an A, If there are any such at Edgewood, I'm sure there are not. And community, yes. Students, faculty, staff, everybody.
Right.
Yeah. And outreach, which I think Edgewood is very good at. And prayer, which I don't know how we address that. So different now. Students now are not necessarily very religious, but
Right.
I don't mean Catholic. I mean religious, spiritual. Have spiritual values.
Right.
That's what I'd like to see. It should be like.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you have anything else to wind this up with? Anything else you'd like to say?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm just happy that Edgewood has got a librarian such as John Elliott.
Good heavens.
In its midst.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.